There we go.
Yes.
There's a little bit of math and physics right there.
I can't believe I didn't know how to do this whole time. Oh my God, look, I'm wearing the Hawking radiation. Okay, guys.
It's the interference pattern.
There's like 60 people already. Let me introduce Jason Padgett. For you guys that don't know, I always mispronounce his name and call him Jason Padgett. Jason Padgett has been on the Today Show with Megyn Kelly. He has been all across the world. He's done TED Talks. He has a theory called Quantum Information Holography, where he fuses, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, where he fuses or kind of unifies quantum mechanics with classical relativity.
Yes.
Where not other people have been able to, and the accuracy he has, which we're going to get into. He has all the physics. He has all the mathematics. This is not just someone saying their philosophies like me, even though I think I'm right about a lot.
I know you get it. Like I said, we just use different terms, but we understand the concepts to be the same.
Yes. And yes. So Jason basically, just a little bit about his story. Jason basically got bumped in the head outside a karaoke bar. These really mean people, decided to get in a fight with him, and he literally woke up being a genius. And he went back to school because he started. Jason, do you want to actually say?
Yeah, so I have something called motion blindness. So when things move, I just see them as picture frames like a movie. And that's what the universe turns out to be, is a holographic projection of information from a black hole onto its event horizon. So the universe is like a movie that is being projected from the singularity. Think of the singularity as like an old-fashioned projector in a movie theater, and it's projecting light, but it's projecting it through quantum entanglement. And it's the singularity is entangled with a holographic screen or the event horizon, and through Hawking radiation, a special type of light that escapes the boundary of black holes, the holographic image is projected onto the event horizon of the black hole. And that event horizon or that holographic movie is us.
And I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to kind of use metaphors as Jason speaks, and then also relate some of this to my own plasma ideas. But basically, for anyone who's a plasma fan here, whenever Jason says Hawking radiation, just picture that as something to do with my higher sentient dimensional plasma field.
Think of it like Hawking radiation. So what this whole process is describing is something called a light clock. And we're going to be talking about how the singularity is like a mirror, and the event horizon, which is like a sphere around it like a snow globe, that's also a mirror. And there's a special type of light that is ticking between the singularity and the event horizon, and it creates something called a light clock. And the angle of this light bouncing between them through entanglement, that's what the curvature of space-time is. That's what time dilation is, and that is what the origin of the Schrodinger equation is.
And what my little theory.
Your sound went down real low.
Oh, mine's low?
Yeah.
My theory is an interference between plasma and consciousness. For Jason, that would be this holographic screen and something to do with Hawking radiation and information. So just when you hear Jason say information, in metaphysics, I would call that consciousness. And when you hear Jason say anything with Hawking radiation or the holographic screen, I would call that plasma in metaphysics. So that is how we can bridge these terms as we start to talk about it. I'm going to give you guys a little more of an intro, and then I'm going to let Jason speak his mind away. And I'm going to give you guys a little intro, a little bit more on Jason and what we're going to talk about today, so you guys can stay tuned. We're going to be here for the next hour, hour and a half.
Yes.
And
go ahead, sorry.
No, just for anyone that misses some of, maybe sit up straight. Shut up. I'm just kidding.
I'm leaning in, aren't I?
No, I thought they were talking to me because I'm like this and I look like I'm like pregnant. I shouldn't have. I said shut up in my head and it came out. I didn't mean that. That was so mean. But guys, no criticizing here, please. Just let's enjoy this fun metaphysical chat. So I'm gonna have this on YouTube after. So for anyone. I'm human, okay? I'm going through a lot right now. For anyone that is very interested in this and can't stay the whole time or has ADHD like me, this will be on YouTube. If you go on the link in my bio, you can subscribe. It's called Holographic Horizons podcast. It is on my YouTube, and all of Jason's links will be on there too, so you can follow him on TikTok. Jason is going to be a Nobel Prize winner very soon. So you guys, the fact that he's live on here, I'm very excited. one more thing, and then I'll let you talk. Just to let you guys know what we're talking about today, we're going to talk about what quantum information holography is, what a quantum state vector is, what black holes are, and what gravity is, and what Jason thinks it is, not just what the normal science right now is saying, how it's connected to Albert Einstein's light clocks, how it has to do with microtubules and the OR theory, and how this all connects to not only us having almost an optimistic future utopia if we go along the lines of where Jason thinks we'll head, but how we can broadcast our microtubules using Neuralink or maybe our consciousness to experience different realities and maybe even talk to our loved ones who have passed away.
Yeah, so what this is showing is what we're going to show basically as we move towards this at the end of this is how our brains observe reality with something called microtubules, and it's how they create this holographic reflection, a coherent reflection that generates what we experience as consciousness. And then we're going to go into how, by copying this process of what black holes or what the universe already does, we can project with Neuralink a quantum frequency directly to the microtubules in our brain that will let us experience as a simulation that is just as real as reality, any reality we choose. Kind of think of it like the movie Ready Player One, but without all the bad stuff. We're going to be able to experience anything that we want to experience, and it will be just as real as this. And the technology probably isn't more than 15 years away.
Yes, and throughout this, if you guys are loving this, me and Jason do this stuff research full time. We always take donations, so if you guys want to gift us or donate to either of us, you could find that on our information on our website. Only if you can. Otherwise, just you listening to us is honestly our biggest dream, to get this information out there. We are doing this because we love it. I see all you guys in the comments too. We're going to do a Q&A in the last 20 minutes. So thank you guys. We love you guys. We'll go through all of this, and we'll take some breaks in between to answer questions because I see a lot of you guys talking. Just know that I love to read your guys's
yes. And it is going to be like a holographic projection on the holodeck of Star Trek, only better, because there they just experience it. Well, maybe it's the same thing. It'll have all the senses. We'll be able to experience taste, touch, smell, every sense. It will be as real as this reality, because what we're doing is we're copying what the universe already does. But in real life, our choices define what reality we experience. And here, we're going to be able to broadcast that coherent reflection directly on the microtubules, which will then allow you to experience any reality that you choose.
Optically. And Nikola Tesla was right. Everything's about energy, frequency, and vibration. And now
we're going to prove that here today. We're going to show how it is all frequency, and specifically the angular frequency of just little bits of light spinning.
Yes.
And how that's light clocks, and how our brains are light clocks, and everything in the universe is just these spinning bits of light, which is just like a quantum computer. Well, we can go into that later, but it is the same thing as a quantum computer. Our universe is a naturally occurring quantum computer, and we are going to mimic that process.
Yes. Okay, let's get into it. Real quick, first, please give me and anyone who doesn't know you an overarching theory. What is your overarching theory and your belief or thoughts about this universe? Thanks, guys.
So what this shows is that the Big Bang, which we always describe as this point in space where everything just suddenly expanded from, is incorrect. So the Big Bang, one of the things that confuses them is, why does the Big Bang seem to emerge from all points at the same time? Not just one. There is no center of the universe where the Big Bang emerged from. It emerges from everywhere. Mm-hmm. This shows that our reality is a field of black holes that are projecting bits of light, and those bits of light that are being projected are Hawking radiation. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, 1 second here. Where were we?
Oh, sorry. Basically, just here. Me and Jason always go on tangents, guys. It's just how we are. Basically, right now, all I need to know is your overarching theory on the universe and what your belief is about this universe. So basically, that we're in a hologram, that this small part is in the whole, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sorry about that. My daughter had crawled in the room, so I was trying to say go out while I was talking. Okay, so what this is showing is that where were we again? Okay, so we were on where we were.
Just talk about kind of like your overarching theory, like quantum information holography, why this everything is in, every hole is in one thing, how that leads to, everything's inside of us, we're very powerful, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so what this is showing basically is that our universe is a field of black holes that are projecting little bits of light. And each one of these little bits of light is projected onto something called a qubit or a block sphere. And they're like little pixels of space-time. They're the minimum pixel of information that can exist in the universe. And the universe is composed of a whole bunch of these little pixels, just like a television screen, only it's spherical pixels with little bits of light spinning on them. And as the little bits of light spin, they interfere with each other, and that interference pattern is what we describe as mass. It's when light collides with itself. It's something called the Wheeler effect, and it creates an interference pattern that is mass. And so basically what we're doing is we're showing the entire universe reduces it into just little spinning bits of light on little pixels, and how fast, or the angular frequency that those little bits of light, which are something called Hawking radiation, the angular frequency that they spin creates these interference patterns, or a holographic projection that is equivalent to general relativity and quantum mechanics both. It describes gravity, it describes the origin of probability, and it describes time dilation.
Okay, let me flip my camera.
Quantum mechanics up. Yeah.
I'm going to flip my camera so people can see. So,
yes. And real quick, while everybody's watching this, we've hooked to this this live stream. This is the video that I've made that goes in detail. It flies inside the black holes. It shows how it works. So it'll make it much easier to visualize what I'm talking about. But what
is this?
That is a qubit. That is a qubit. So the surface of that, think of that as like the surface of the black hole, the event horizon. It's called a holographic screen. And the holographic screen is composed of a whole bunch of those. It's also in the video. Yeah, that's called a block sphere. So it's a block sphere is like the pixels of space-time right there.
And this is all of them.
That's a holographic screen. That is the event horizon composed of a whole bunch of little qubits. And those little qubits have little bits of light spinning on them. And how those bits of light interfere, that is the curvature. Right. So right there, sorry, yeah. So if we go back to that, yeah, that's a block. Sorry, go ahead back to that last one.
Where was I?
It was the block sphere. It's just a little sphere with an arrow on it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hold on.
That's all right.
Right here.
That's it. Okay. So I'll tell you all what a block sphere is first. Think of it like a pixel on a TV screen. Only that's the pixels of the universe, and they're the Planck length. It's an incredibly small amount, so small that it makes atoms look like galaxies. But the universe is composed of those little spheres, and on those spheres, that little arrow that's being emitted is a special type of light called Hawking radiation that is emitted from black holes. The angle of that light encodes the velocity using just light that is on that little qubit. So basically all you got to know is that little angle of light, c times the cosine of theta, is the velocity encoded in the x direction. C times the sine of theta is the velocity encoded in the y direction. The square of the amplitude of that angle gives you the probability that that qubit will collapse into a 0 or a 1, just like the matrix. So think of our universe as being these little qubits that are collapsing into zeros and ones, and that's quantum mechanics. And the way that they collapse depends upon that angle. And then as that angle changes, that is describing what's called acceleration, which is equivalent to gravity. So this is showing, basically Einstein, what he showed is Einstein came up with something called a vector tensor field, which is space-time is composed of these little arrows, and how the angle that the arrow is facing and its magnitude tells you the gravity at that point. All I've really done is I'm saying, yes, Einstein is right, but encoded in those little arrows is also the probability of that qubit collapsing into a 0 and 1. And that's what bridges the two theories.
Yes, how does yours differ from Einstein? Yours goes deeper, how?
It goes deeper because what his is doing is just showing gravity. So what I'm showing is that the angle of those vectors, that encodes velocity, and it also encodes probability amplitude. And that is what the Schrodinger equation is.
Yeah.
And so it encodes probabilities of the qubit collapsing into 0 or 1, which his doesn't. And by them encoding velocity, when they emit new vectors that change or stay the same, when you have two measurements on a qubit, that gives you the rate of change of velocity. And the definition of the rate of change of velocity is acceleration. And Einstein proved acceleration is equivalent to gravity. And this shows that as those quantum state vectors spin on the qubits, they are literally drawing curvature. So curvature is how fast those qubits are spinning, and the angle of those moments is describing the probability that the qubit will collapse into a 0 or a 1. So the 0 and 1 part, the probabilities, that's quantum mechanics. And the part about curvature, that's Einstein's relativity. And the reason why they haven't been able to merge the two is because of black holes. In the equation that they use to describe black holes, the radius of the black hole, it's like a fraction, the radius of the black hole is in the denominator, the bottom part. So as the radius of the black hole goes to 0, any number divided by 0 goes to infinity. And when you get infinity in the physics equation, you know it's wrong. And what this is showing is that the radius doesn't go infinitely small. The radius goes to the Planck length, which is not 0. And you don't wind up dividing by 0 and having infinity as an answer.
So just to break it down into more like metaphorical terms, the angular frequency, what you're introducing, unless I'm wrong, is the observer and choice, and showing that this is a holographic universe, and our choices and our consciousness is literally in a feedback loop with the universe. Is that
Yes.
where
It's exactly like that. So the singularity is like a mirror, and it holds, think of it like Netflix. Netflix has a library of movies where it holds all these different movies that you can watch. The singularity, the Big Bang, is like this quantum interference pattern where it's like Netflix, but the number of movies that it holds is called the Bekenstein bound, which is 2 to the 10th to the 123rd power. It's a huge number, and that's the number of unique histories our universe can have. And so the black hole is like Netflix. It has all these movies, and it's broadcasting all of these quantum frequencies just naturally through the way black holes work onto the event horizon. And so when we describe something in reality, like if I describe you, I don't describe you, I describe all possible versions of you making these ripples that interfere, and the way that they interfere, that describes what actually happens in reality. But
so it's my choices and how they interfere with reality makes who I am.
yes, so here in this life, when we make a choice, we are like collapsing wave functions, and we are selectively pruning possible histories that still exist, but we're not experiencing them. If we, understanding how this works, and how the brain works, and when we broadcast a certain quantum frequency directly to the microtubules, it will allow you to experience any reality you choose without actually having, like us in real life, I've got to go left or go right. But here you can directly broadcast anything you want.
Bye. Okay, that's going to get us into, we jumped ahead. Let's get into really quick. So a light clock, just very basic light clock, Albert Einstein, and how it relates to your theories. I'm just going to tell people in a way I think they'll be able to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong. So picture that there is a positive side and a negative side. The light clock is the positive and the negative, and then there's a photon that seems like it's bouncing between, and almost like in a feedback way, but it's really entangled with the Hawking radiation between these two. And in this kind of plasma field or electron cloud and microtubules, or what you're calling the Hawking radiation, this is where there's this feedback. And this is, you say that this is repeated in how our brain works. This is what happens in microtubules. This is what happens in black holes. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the same process. So what our brains are doing is literally the exact same thing that the singularity and the event horizon are doing. And so this also is the solution to something called the black hole information paradox. Black holes, everything goes into a black hole and can't come out, supposedly. So like if you, to see something, you got to hit it with light, and then it reflects light back at you and you see what you're observing. If you try to look at a black hole, if you hit it with light, it absorbs the light and nothing comes back. And so that's called this thing. There's this thing called the information paradoxes. When something goes into the black hole, supposedly it's lost forever. This shows that it isn't lost forever. That the information that is in the black hole escapes through entanglement. And the way to think about it is we can't see inside of a black hole. So how do we get information out of it? Yeah. Well, since the event horizon is a mirror of what's happening in the black hole, and it's right outside the black hole, then you can see it, you can observe it. So by looking at the event horizon, which is a reflection of the singularity, it's like watching a movie in a mirror. Like, you can't see in a black hole, but you can see its reflection on the boundary. Screen. So
on the plasma screen, but on the holographic screen.
Yes, and technically it is a quark gluon plasma. It's created from something called superposition of photons, where photons exist of opposite spin, exist on one little qubit. They collapse into black holes, and then they emit this special type of light called Hawking radiation. But the surface of the event horizon is equivalent to something called a quark gluon plasma, which is this perfect fluid. So you can think of our universe as like the highest definition holographic quark gluon plasma screen that operates exactly like a quantum computer with just little qubits, with little arrows spinning on qubits. And that's what quantum computers are. Quantum computers are just little spheres with little arrows spinning on it. And we're saying that's what the universe is, and those arrows are
now they've figured it out. And my theory kind of even builds on that with there's something higher dimensional. This is more metaphysical, but the higher dimensional form of even a quark gluon plasma, I think this higher dimensional plasma is the bridge between the singularity and our holographic screen. And that enables the feedback, almost like a fourth dimensional plasma, in a way where it's like veins in the body where you look at a person and you know blood's flowing, but you can't see that happening, but they're a person. It's like that's where the photons or information or consciousness is feedbacking with the singularity and with the screen. I think there has to be some invisible thread, and I think that is what that is.
Yeah. So so you visualize it as plasma, and I actually the screen is plasma, but technically when I describe it, especially for a scientist, like we have to say Hawking, I say Hawking radiation. But how it works is like, I'll give you guys the equation right now. And included in this, we've actually put a PDF that any of you can now download into your AI. So if you take this
in my bio.
Yes, in her bio, there's a link, and it's where I have put in about 25 pages of equations, where all you have to do is copy and paste that PDF file into your chat GPT, and it will confirm that all of these equations are equivalent and that they're empirically verified. So that's one of the big things, is not only are these equations equivalent, but they're empirically verifiable, and I already have verified it, but scientists are going to do the same thing. But just so that everybody watching can understand, I'm going to real quick, I'll be real fast and won't try not to be too technical, but this is the equation. Yeah, this is the equation for the origin of time, and I'm going to show you how it works. So Einstein came up with time dilation, and time dilation is how your motion through space and time always equals exactly the speed of light. So the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, so that your motion through space and time is always the speed of light. And so in his equation for time dilation, the only part that matters is this thing called the Lorentz factor. Mm-hmm. And there's two little bits in it: velocity squared divided by the speed of light squared. Mm-hmm. And he's describing how time dilation works from this big level. What I'm showing is that the angular frequency, which is W, we can use that, like I was telling you before, the angle of that vector on a sphere, a block sphere, that tells you velocity, and the rate that it's changing is telling you the angle of that tells you the velocity. In his equation, velocity squared, since now we know angular frequency, we can define velocity with it. We can take velocity out of his equation and put angular frequency and substitute it for velocity, because it's the same thing. C squared is in the denominator of his equation. In my equation, C is just the qubit axis, which is 1. C squared is now just 1 times 1, which is 1, which is angular frequency squared divided by 1, which is just angular frequency. So the new time dilation equation, the Lorentz factor, is the square root of 1 or delta t times the square root of 1 minus angular frequency squared. It gives you the exact same answer as Einstein's, but it shows its quantum mechanical origin. And CERN, I'll be real quick, this is the last part. Yeah, at CERN, they've measured time dilation from muons, these little particles that emitted from the sun, and they move at about 94% the speed of light. They've measured their time dilation, and they verified that Einstein is correct. My equation, what we have to do is you just go back and you put in the known angular frequency, or you can convert that to frequency of a muon, put it into my equation, and it gives you the exact same answer as Einstein's and matches the data from CERN.
I wasn't going to bring this up because I'm going to I wanted this to be our next live, but I just will give you guys, just for a sneak peek, because we're about to talk about seeing different realities and how it's actually going to be possible in our microtubules in our brains. With muons, I don't even think Jason realized this, but I randomly studied the 3 flavors of neutrinos, which is a tau, a muon, and an electron neutrino. And funny enough, they're just like red, green, and blue. It's just like RGB, like a TV screen. Jason, can you speak a little bit on like the weirdness of how those 3 things connect to your theory?
Yes. So the universe is like a holographic screen. So all of us right now are watching our phones or our screens. But if you look in close at your screen, the pixels really close, they're only playing red, blue, and green, and that's it. And they're playing them at different intensities. So when you look close at your screen, all you see is red, blue, and green. But when you stand back, they average out together to become the rainbow. And what this is showing is that the pixels of our reality, these little qubits, they have 3 different angular frequencies. One is prime angular frequencies that are prime numbers, 7 and above. They do something called they resist decoherence, so they don't collapse. That is what luminous matter is. 27% of the angular frequencies are primes 7 and above to any power or times themselves. That is angular frequencies that decohere not quite as much as the other ones. And then 68% of the angular frequencies have something called decoherence where they collapse. So basically reality is 3 angular frequencies, just like red, blue, and green pixels on your television. The only difference is...
How are those changed? That's changed by choice, or like how were the colors determined, or these neutrinos determined? Do you think it has to do with the angular frequency? So would that mean
it's all of them? Yes, it's literally so all possible signals, or like Richard Feynman called it, the sum of histories. So what it is, when you describe something, you're describing all possible histories and how those histories interfere with each other. And how they interfere, that describes what actually happens in reality. The projection that we experience, that is our universe, is the sum of the histories of all of these quantum states projected, where the action along the path in Richard Feynman's equation is defined by the phase and the frequency. So this shows the origin of the sum over histories. What we're doing is we're just showing that all of these little spinning vectors, when you take all possible realities and you average them together, the sum of the history of their projection, weighted by their phase and frequency, is what we experience as reality.
Trying to find those plates, but I can't right now. Okay, well, what I was going to show you guys quick is actually a really interesting thing about
We'll go back to that picture that you just had.
That?
See, that. So that, there we go. So each one of those little squares, that's a holographic plate. And the way that you order those plates, when the singularity's light shines through them through quantum entanglement, the sum of the history of those plates, weighted by their phase and their frequency, is the projection that you experience on the event horizon.
Yeah, so
that video is available on my TikTok, it's only like 4 minutes long, but it goes through it like step by step, so you can visually see it without any equations, just with normal terms.
Got it. And this is something interesting, guys, just some connections I made. When Jason talks about the 5 luminous matter, that has to do with prime angular frequencies. Dark matter has to do with symmetrical numbers collapsing due to decoherence. And dark energy is remaining prime-derived angular frequencies, which drives expansion.
And they mirror the densities of actual prime numbers. So 5% of all prime numbers approximately, 5% of numbers are prime numbers. 27% of numbers are primes times primes and primes to a power. And all the other numbers, 68%, is just regular numbers that collapse. And that mirrors the density of dark energy. So luminous matter, 5% of the matter in our universe is luminous matter. That's prime angular.
That's what I call crystallized plasma, just so everyone knows. They're stable interference patterns. Visible and structured.
Exactly. So 5% of all of our universe is luminous matter. That's prime angular frequencies. 27% is dark.
Blue, or green.
Yes, and 27% of all the matter in our universe is dark matter, and that is prime angular frequencies times prime angular frequencies. And 68% of everything in our universe is dark energy, and that is angular frequencies that have symmetry and they decohere into nothingness, but they create this pressure that makes the universe expand faster and faster.
And just so everyone knows, a really interesting, and this is a secret that I was going to talk about in my video that's very interesting. These are just some theories to go on a tangent that I made. The luminous matter or crystallized plasma has to do with the electron neutrino. It's a low angular frequency, and it's the color red. This is if we're on a real holographic screen. It is stable, grounding, and foundational. The dark matter is more like dark plasma. It's fourth dimensional. It's invisible in this reality, but it's gravitationally active. It kind of has to do with space-time geometry. That has to do with the muon neutrino and its medium angular frequency, which is green, which is an energy carrier and dynamic. The tau neutrino is a high angular frequency. It is blue. This is related to the dark energy, or what I would call collapsed fifth dimensional plasma. And this is more my metaphysics, but what I found so interesting is, to me, this proves that dark energy you can also call fear in psychology. That actually is love in the fifth dimension, and we interpret it as fear because we are confused down here. But the moment we learn that we can transmute this dark energy just like the universe does, we can transmute it into love. It's a lot, but it's just... And the fact that the tau neutrino has to do with this mysterious dark energy, it has a lot to do with I think it's religion or philosophy that has to do with tau or the Tao. Anyway, there's so much. I'll put it on another video. I just had to go on that tangent.
No problem.
Okay, let's get back to, I think, the most interesting part of this whole thing. So whoever stayed, goes. Someone just said goes, and that's what we're about to talk about. So
yes. So what this is showing is that the singularity all throughout space-time, Hawking radiation is popping, these things called virtual particles are popping into existence and out of existence everywhere from something called the uncertainty principle. And it's too long to go into why, but just imagine these little virtual particles are popping into existence. One of them has negative mass, one of them has positive mass. And what Stephen Hawking asks is what happens when they pop into existence at the event horizon of a black hole? When that happens, the one with negative mass falls into the black hole, but it's entangled with its other one, which is right outside the black hole. So this one falls into the black hole, it's entangled with the other particle that's on the holographic screen, and the one that falls into the black hole bobs up and down on the interference pattern that's the singularity, like a record player with a needle reading the record player's bumps and grooves. That particle is bobbing up and down, it's negative, and the other one that's entangled with it on the holographic screen is mirroring what it does. And so that's how this holographic process takes place through entanglement. Well, in our brains, we have something called microtubules. And what they are doing is just looking at signals that are exactly like this. The way to think about it is you know how when you tune in an old-fashioned TV or a radio, like imagine you're watching an old TV and you just see nothing but static on the screen. But around in the air around you, all of the other stations are all being broadcast, but you're not seeing it. As you tune your television, the signal that's coming from the TV tower is like a radio signal that's going tick, 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 tick at a certain frequency. When you tune your device to the same frequency, it makes a coherent tick, 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 a coherent interference pattern, and we call that a coherent signal. So that's when you're tuning your TV and you see static, and then suddenly it goes whoop, and the station comes into high resolution. That's because you are tuned to the same frequency that it is broadcasting. The singularity is broadcasting all possible quantum frequencies just naturally, and our microtubules are creating these coherent holographic reflections of the signal that is being broadcasted relative to where you are in space and time.
And
so understanding how our brains do this, where basically one microtubule has a negative end, the other microtubule has a positive end.
One tubulin in the microtubule. So it's a tubulin, and one dipole is the positive, and one dipole is the negative. And then Stuart Hameroff in OR theory with Roger Penrose, they talk about an electron cloud in between it. And guess what, everyone? An electron cloud is plasma, or what Jason is.
What I call an interference pattern, but it's an interference pattern on a plasma screen, on a quark-gluon plasma screen. Yes. And so what the universe is doing, it's bouncing light through entanglement from the singularity to which is a mirror, to the holographic screen, which is a mirror, and this interference pattern that occurs between the two, that is describing what's happening in the universe. In our brain, it's the exact same, because in my theory, the singularity is negative mass, and what's happening on our holographic screen is this positive reflection. It's like a neutrino and an antineutrino, or a photon and an antiphoton.
Or a yin-yang.
Yeah, or yin-yang, exactly. And so what they're describing is there's a dipole with negative on this end, positive on this end, and this electron cloud is this interference pattern between the two. It's the exact same process, only I'm showing how this occurs with black holes. And to not only do we have empirical verification of this, but when you look at Penrose and Hameroff's work, they're brilliant. And Penrose won the Nobel Prize in Physics for black holes in 2020. So if you download the PDF that we put on here, that we've hooked to this, your AI will confirm not only that all of these equations are equivalent, but they are empirically verified. So I really strongly suggest everybody watching this, please download that into your AI, because then you'll know that we're not talking just about quantum woohoo stuff. We're talking about this is real, and we're going to be able to do this.
I just put the link in the bio. It's also, the link in the comment is also in my bio link. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's Jason's theory. All you have to do is copy, and I'll put it in YouTube too for those that are going to watch on YouTube. I'll put it in the comments.
I'm sorry. Somebody just asked about the Riemann hypothesis. So I posted that. That's also the solution to the Riemann hypothesis is hypothetically within this, and it has to do with prime numbers. But if you look on Zenodo, Zenodo, and just look up my name, Jason Padgett, and the Riemann hypothesis solution. I published a paper on that about a week or two ago that shows how primes have potentially solved that. So. Oh
my God, so cool.
Yeah, sorry.
And in this case, I think with what you're talking about too, yin would be the negative dipole, or the holograph, or would that be the singularity? Or what?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. So this is literally like yin yang. So the singularity, anything that happens in the singularity is also happening, a reflection of it is happening on the holographic screen or the event horizon. So the singularity is information being broadcast, but information is nothing by itself. Yeah. The event horizon is like a mirror that reflects things, but the mirror is nothing without something to reflect. Yeah, so each one of them is half, but individually they're nothing, but together you have information being projected and you have it reflecting off this boundary. So individually they're nothing, but together they're everything, and they're complete yin-yang opposites of one another. It's this balance that conserves information and energy. Nothing is ever created or destroyed. It is always there and just eternally transforming from light to mass and mass back into light.
Okay, let's get into the really interesting thing that we spoke about a little bit, and I spoke about in my video of Neuralink, and why, yes, I get people think it's all evil, but there are good uses, just like there's good uses of social media. Why? Let's get into the really fun futuristic stuff now in our last 20 minutes, and then we'll get a quick Q&A for everybody. Yeah. And we'll still answer Q&As now. Do you want to explain how the event horizon is created before the interior, or what does that mean?
Where does it come from? So do they mean like where does it come from in the first place?
I'll let them clarify. While they write that, let's get into how we can use Neuralink to harness our microtubules and our consciousness to tune to different realities and even sense different realities. really quick, this girl
Mhm.
has been asking many times, did you have an NDE, or what happened when you got conked out?
So when I got attacked in this robbery, they hit me on the back of the head that caused the motion blindness from a injury, a brain injury. And from my perspective, all I saw was this puff of light, like somebody taking a picture, and then I was on the ground getting attacked by these people. But what I found out later from a neurologist, that when when you get knocked out, you see a flash of light because your brain is bouncing off of your skull, and it creates this puff of light. So from my perspective, I just got hit, saw a puff of light, woke up on the ground, and it had caused motion blindness. Which has been permanent since then. But when things move, and we describe things in physics and mathematics, we're describing a picture of a particle here, and then another picture. Picture frames, just like a holographic movie. And so when you're forced to see in picture frames, it makes it very easy to see the mathematics behind physics and what's going on around you, because you're all seeing picture frames like a flip book like this,
Yeah.
but your brain smooths them out by itself. So my hand looks continuous, but technically you're only seeing like 20 pictures a second, just like a video on a TV, and your brain smooths it for you.
So it's kind of like a flip book, or like you're saying with these holographic plates. Basically, what Neuralink's going to be able to do, if it can hack and harness our microtubules to see different realities, is that you're changing and talk more about this, but my understanding is you're changing how the plates are arranged, which is kind of the same with how you're viewing this flip book. If you're changing the flip book papers, you're going to have a different view of reality. Is that kind of where it goes?
Yeah. So it's like no matter how you slice the universe, it's the same movie, but from a different perspective. But the main thing, like when it comes to Neuralink, the main thing is that when you're broadcasting a signal and you have a coherent interference pattern with that signal, that is what you are tuned into. And so the microtubules in your brain are just reading the interference pattern of the universe around you, the light and all the information. If we broadcast directly to the microtubules a signal that makes a coherent picture in our microtubules, then that will create a holographic image, or actually an experience that is equivalent to consciousness. So we can project directly onto the microtubules with Neuralink. Right now we can do it with Neuralink. There might be other ways to do it in the future. But Neuralink is just this little wire that is implanted that could broadcast directly to the microtubules the interference patterns that then allow you to experience whatever reality you choose. And it's just as real as this one. All we're doing is we're copying what the universe is already doing with technology.
Okay, so explain what will we have. So let's just say Neuralink is able to, with the microtubules, how will we be able to see different realities and sense different realities, and even talk to possibly people who have passed on?
Yeah, because there's the Bekenstein-bound number of possible histories that our universe can have. There's not actually an infinite number of histories. It's called the Bekenstein-bound. It's a Nobel Prize winning equation, but it's a huge number. So all you do is just choose whichever one you want. Whatever you broadcast, that's what you experience. And the number of movies that can be broadcast without creating a black hole that absorbs everything is the Bekenstein bound. So you can choose from 1 out of 2 to the power of 10 to the power of 123 different movies, or all of them. You can experience anything you want to experience. And what's good about this is, like, some people will say, oh, well, this, bad people are going to do something bad with this. Well, this is one of those things that it actually works for everybody. Some people like being mean. Well, they can experience a mean universe and live in that without affecting us. Every person can experience whatever reality, whatever depravity, whatever beautiful thing, they can all experience it without affecting each other. And it's just as real to them. So there's no need for us to be competing over resources, anything, because anybody can experience whatever reality they choose to without affecting anybody else.
So it's almost like if we're in this own little bubble, each of us, and we'll literally see when we're using Neuralink, or maybe, training our consciousness. Because I always like to say, I think it's indigenous wisdom, and I'm sure we can do it on our own, but it takes a lot more practice, and Neuralink is like a hack right into it, which I'm sure some people will like. But it's almost like we can literally be each of us in a different reality, because this almost bubble that's around us and how our consciousness is interacting with reality, this Neuralink will change our microtubules, so we'll optically see and sense reality different, is what you're saying.
You can see, it's what the universe is already doing right now. Like you and I are technically having two different realities right now, but they're so close to each other that we all agree on what's happening. Like people who have schizophrenia, what that is, according to my theory, is that it's a problem with their microtubules. All possible realities exist. So there's a possible reality where somebody appears in my ear and says, "Oh," and they whisper something, and you're hearing voices. That's a problem with their microtubules, where their microtubules are reading an interference pattern, a real universe that exists, but it's not one that we all agree on. And because like when you and I are next to each other, because of relativity, we're experiencing slightly different colors and slightly different length contractions, but our observation of reality is so close that we can agree on it. People with schizophrenia have an issue with their microtubules where they are literally tuned to the wrong frequency, and they're experiencing something that's real somewhere, but not here, where we all are agreeing on generally everything that's happening. It's more complicated than that, but that's generally the idea.
It makes perfect. It has to. I think same thing. A funny thing I learned, and I mean this has to do with blood plasma, which is completely different, but I think there's still a weird connection that no one's spoken about yet. In microtubules, or when you have Alzheimer's, one of the first things to go, I think that has to do with like your microtubules, or how something with blood plasma levels, the blood plasma levels drop. And and also your sense of smell drops, which has to do with olfactory, which I think has to do with plasma. But anyway,
so in Alzheimer's, there's this plaque in their brain. So think of it like signals, interference patterns are being broadcast and creating these coherent signals. But when you have plaque buildup, it's like crystals in between the light that is now disrupting that interference pattern that's being projected in the brain. And because the brain is just spinning like clocks also. If you actually listen to a recording of a neuron, which they've actually made recordings of brains, and all it is tick, 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 tick. It's a whole bunch of spinning light clocks, which is a quantum computer, these little quantum states spinning on Bloch spheres, and how they all spin together, that is the quantum computational process that our brains are doing. And understanding how our brains do that will allow us, again, to directly broadcast what we want to experience to our brains with the right technology.
And just letting people know, this is my opinion, but just for my followers who obviously don't like Neuralink, and you don't have to, you can do this, I believe, naturally. I'm writing about it in my book, A New Force. I'm going to pitch that. The link is in my bio. It has to do with what I call plasma consciousness synergy. A lot of the stuff Jason talks about actually directly correlates with my research. We're saying the same thing in two different languages, but basically in my world, you'll be able to train your conscious awareness to have synergy with this plasma. And once you're able to do this, you can lucid dream, you can astral project, you can actually be in other realities and feel like you are in those. Will it be as strong as Neuralink? I don't know that. I can't predict that, but there are ways.
Yeah, I agree. What's amazing is a real theory of everything applies to everything. And that includes our emotions and our feelings. And so everything is a coherent and decoherent signal. When a peak of a wave hits a valley, they become nothing. When peaks hit each other, they amplify. So when you have somebody that's negative around you and we start responding negatively back to them, we are giving coherence. We are amplifying what they're doing. When somebody's like doing something that's really annoying, if you try to think, I'm just going to let it pass over me, that's decoherence, where you're not giving power to the signal that they are broadcasting to you. And so by surrounding yourself with more good things, with more good decisions, with happier people or whatever, you are increasing the probability and the magnitude of good interactions versus bad interactions. But the main thing is that you want to give coherence to the positive in your life and decoherence to the negatives, and your life will be more pleasant.
So basically what you're saying with decoherence is you don't have to fight against it, you need to neutralize it.
Yes. Fighting against it makes it stronger. There's negative decoherence where two valleys hit and they get deeper, positive decoherence, and then one where they just eliminate each other, and that's what you want. Be the water, be the light, and just let it flow, you know?
And that is so important to me. And I never talk politics. I'm not going to get into anything with the world. But what I will say is when you're part of a group that's anti something, unfortunately, you're still putting energy into that problem. So you have to figure out how to be for something instead of being against something.
Yes. Yes, and that's what all of our news stations are doing now. Is they're making sure that we all are just mad at each other and creating this, because people they get paid by the click. So and people click on a bad, like when you see, oh my God, this thing killed 10 people, you're more likely to click on that than, oh, a cat was saved out of a tree. And so they are getting rewarded for you clicking on negative things, which makes them then show you more negative things to make more money. And before you know it, all you're seeing is negative stuff. And it seems like everything in the world is bad, but it's really just what they're projecting to you on your screen.
The one reality. When the sad truth is, there's always suffering and there's always beauty, and we have to choose what to tune into.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we don't suffer as humans, but there's ways to be in a reality where we change our reaction to even, I'm sure most people know my dad's in a coma right now. I could be in bed depressed every day, but I'm visiting him, and then I come back home and I try to enjoy my life, because you have to have a positive perspective. It doesn't mean you can't hurt. It doesn't mean, me and Jason aren't saying to be toxically positive. You're going to lose people. It's the human experience. But what is so important is instead of, for instance, what I'm doing right now, what I've been doing is focusing on the people that aren't there for me, because that's just part of a stupid personality defect I have. Instead of focusing on the people who are caring for me. And I need to neutralize it by focusing on my work and the people caring for me, not on why is no one being, like, why are the people closest not,
right. Right. We tend to focus like we'll have 1,000 people say good things and then one person says one nasty comment and you're like, oh, that little jerk. And what we're doing is we're giving them coherence, and we need to not give them coherence.
Yeah. Sorry, Jason. Same with TikTok. I sometimes find myself answering the negative, and I'm like, I now need to answer 10 positive to make up for that, because I shouldn't have even answered that. I should just have left. Yes. Your attention is your currency. That is such a great way to put it, Stacy.
And also just real quick about death. So about people, but so what this shows is that the universe is a big bang and a big crunch, and a big bang and a big crunch. But there's only so many ways, and each time there's a new big bang, that's a new history of the universe. But since there's the Bekenstein bound number of ways that the universe can be reconfigured, and this happens forever, once you have the Bekenstein bound number of big bangs, the pattern of this universe must repeat. So all histories, including this one, happen over and over again. So when somebody dies, it's not this final farewell. It's actually a prelude to a new hello, when you will meet them again. Our parents have been our parents an infinite amount of times in the past, and they will be an infinite amount of times in the future, and all possible configurations. So that one is one of those things that gives me comfort, but it does it scientifically, that we really do get to experience and see our loved ones again. And now with this process, we could broadcast every reality, including the one where we still are with our parents, or where we see them again, or anything.
Yeah. And you're saying, not the spirit world, technically, we will see them in a reality where they're our mom and dad.
Yeah, and in some reality, spirits are something that you can connect to it, and probably maybe here too. But this is just how we can describe that process. Every history, any movie that you can make, which includes like science fiction movies, any way that you can rearrange the pixels on a screen, that is a possible history of our universe. Some histories are more common and some are much more rare, but they all actually happen. And the way that we describe reality is by summing all of them.
Yes. Okay, so speak on this. This is my philosophy, and I want to know how your philosophy or your science and math relate to this. I have a theory, like all of my theories. I don't know if it's a theory or hypothesis. I don't even care. I have a thought and an idea that our life, we're like a fractal, almost like the tree of life, right? And at some point it is a circle and it repeats. And maybe it repeats at higher and higher levels, and there's a bigger fractal. Who knows? But I'm like a fractal, and with every choice I make, I fractal into a new direction. But then there's all the fractals of the choices I didn't make that are fractal but less dense. And I can still time hop into those realities by making choices back to those, or I can continue on my density or destiny, which is the same word with the same letters, just sounds different. So I feel like although we do have a maybe destiny based on our choices, with choice, we can hop into other realities. So it's almost like a slower way of what you're saying we can do with Neuralink.
That's what exactly. That's what the universe is doing. It's slowly going through every configuration, but we have to go through all of them and the choices and all these things do that. With this process, we can broadcast whatever we want directly to our microtubules and experience it. Yeah. And so it's called stream hopping. Where all streams, The singularity is broadcasting all possible quantum frequencies, which is the Bekenstein bound.
Yes.
And the one that you're tuned to with your microtubules that creates this coherent reflection, that is what you experience as reality. And so all we have to do is create that reflection on the microtubules and you will experience that reality. It's not, the technology is not here yet, but it will be in the very near future. So
yeah. So okay. Last thoughts before we do a quick Q&A. What are some of your predictions for within our lifetime? What's going to happen with revolutions in science in this holographic universe with other realities? What does that mean? Like, what do you think is sooner than most people probably think?
Yeah. So let me write this down. Physicists and cavemen. Okay. So the physicists, some love this and some hate this. Who really understands this the most is informatics professors, because that has to do with information. So physics is beautiful, but physics is not fundamental, and neither is gravity. They merge. Physics is describing the observable phenomenon on the holographic screen or the event horizon. Informatics or quantum information holography is describing it's a dual description of physics and quantum mechanics in terms of information projected. So it's like when somebody's playing a video game and you see the video game on the screen, inside the computer there's zeros and ones that are making what's happening on the screen happen. Physicists are studying the screen. So, but they don't even, so it's like trying to describe the zeros and ones that's inside of a video game by looking at only the screen, and not even knowing that you're looking at just the screen. That's what physicists are. Yeah, physicists are looking at the screen to try to describe reality, but that's just the screen. Reality is the information that is what's happening on the video game. And so that's the biggest problem, is that they're looking, the reason why they will not and have not been able to unify quantum mechanics and relativity is because they don't even know, most of them, some do, that they're looking at a screen. And they're trying to describe information from can you imagine trying to describe the code of a video game by looking at the screen, but not even knowing that you're trying to describe code from a screen?
No, but what you're saying is you have hope that we're heading into a more informatic, holographic, multi-reality understanding of our world.
Yeah, so it's like that's why I was saying physicists and cavemen. They're beautiful, and I'm not bagging on them at all. What they do is beautiful, but a caveman could make a fantastic spear. When you look at how he sharpened it and how they did it, it's beautiful and it works. Yeah. But they can't build technology with it, and that's what physics has been doing. Is they're great at what they're doing, but it's not the whole picture. And so it's kind of where this is leading. To me, it looks like we are in this new age where we're going to be jumping from like the caveman day, a big as leap as it was from the cavemen till now. We're making a leap like that in the next 20 years that it's hard to even imagine where it's going, because the sky is the limit when it comes to now. If this proves to be correct, which, like I said, anybody who's watching this, please download the PDF and your AI will confirm it's correct and empirically verified.
The link is in my bio, guys. Just click on my stand store. It's all the way at the bottom. And if you're watching this on YouTube a few days from now, it is in the YouTube description and in my link in my stand store. Jason's PDF, you can get my Google Drive. You copy it into AI. Don't ask it anything, and it will tell you that his theories match Schrodinger and Kepler and someone else.
Yeah, it'll show it matches Kepler's laws. It shows the origin of the Schrodinger equation, the origin of time dilation, and the origin of gravity equivalently. And since it's equivalent to all the existing equations, we can apply it directly to empirical data, and it gives the exact same answer, but it does it for both quantum mechanics and relativity, which is the unification of the two. under terms of holographic information. So where it's going, it means that we understand like what atomic orbitals are. When they talk about like atomic orbitals, they are these stable angular frequencies. So the periodic table of elements right now, every element has like an atomic mass and an atomic weight. But what this shows is that every element also has an angular frequency. And all elements in the periodic table are these stable angular frequencies. And so what I've done with these new equations is shown that we can predict the angular by describing the orbitals as angular frequencies. We can input this, which then tells us the nuclear magnetic resonance of the elements, and then we compare that to data at CERN that shows you the nuclear magnetic resonance of the elements, and they match exactly. They match exactly for every single element. We can predict the nuclear magnetic resonance of all.
Explain degenerate states then. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of different things that you can ask. So there's no way that one person is going to be able to describe everything to you. I'll write it down and I'll give you a description that's equivalent on the next podcast, degenerate states. But right now we're not going to be able to go into any of that. But I do understand. So that person is somebody who's into physics, and sometimes this can be threatening when people see that because they've spent their whole life studying physics and they've gone to school for years and years and years, and now suddenly you're saying that what you've been studying isn't base reality, even though it's beautiful and even though it can predict things. This is the thing.
Part of reality.
Well, this is the thing. Is physics starts off saying that physics is broken. We can't describe black holes with it. But then when you try to describe it without physics, they say, no, you've got to include physics. But the beginning of that statement was physics is broken. We can't unify them. And so it tends to be more of a thing that I don't have a better way to say it. It's kind of like an ego thing. We feel bad. Like I'm not making fun of physicists. What they have done is brilliant. But it's like when you talk to when you talk to a physicist from the 1800s to now, they seem like they don't know anything. Well, the physicists now are going to look that way in the very near future because we're gaining information so fast.
Huh? And guess what, guys? Me and Jason are very open to the fact that in 100, 200 years, people will build on our theories and will seem like nitwits. Like, this is just how the envelope is always pushed. And just like physics was a reality and a part of reality, what we're seeing is a part. Maybe there's an even deeper one. Maybe there's more out there. Like, we are just trying to push to the edge of leading thought, as Abraham Hicks would said. We're trying to push the envelope because if you don't push that, we'll stay the same forever. It's just like a person growing. It's like, at least we are not being cowards and we're being brave enough to question these parts of the universe. Sorry.
Well, and like I said, this is empirically verified. Again, there's not time to go through everything in this live stream. That's why I tell everybody, just copy and paste that PDF into your AI. You can also ask it, explain this theory to me in normal terms. Explain it at PhD level terms. Explain it to a physicist. Explain it to an informatics professor. Because a physicist is going to look at it different from an informatics professor. Even though they're really studying the same thing, they're studying it from two different perspectives. And that's what this is. This is a dual description of quantum mechanics and relativity in terms of information. So it's not in a form that physicists are used to seeing. And when you go and talk to the different professors, there is a lot of this competition that goes on. And that's why I think in many ways our education system is broken, because it doesn't reward coming up with new ideas. If you come up with something that's slightly different, then you'll get made fun of, or they'll say, oh, well, that's too weird. Well, you know what? They said that about Einstein, and they said that about Tesla, and they said that about quantum mechanics. And it's just, reality is weirder than what they can imagine. And what's Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics. And his famous quote was, a lot of these PhDs that I know have confused their degree with intelligence. What they are is most of them, or not most of them, but most people, and me too, all of us can do it. We're information parrots, where we're just saying, like somebody goes and gets a degree in physics. Many times what they're doing is they're memorizing the formulas, they're learning this specific process, And then they can tell you, did you know this? Did you know black hole? Or did you know that a star does this? Did you know that magnetism works like this? But they don't understand where it comes from. What this is attempting to do, and what it appears to have done, is to say where it all comes from and why it exists in the first place. And that's called trying to basically, you're coming up with a theory from first principles. They have to, in physics, like now, they have to input certain things into their equations to get these predictions of how the acceleration from gravity happens. From first principles, you don't need to input any empirical data. You just put it into the equation and you get the answer. And that's what my time dilation equation does. Einstein's is the Lorentz factor is 1 divided by the square root of 1 minus velocity squared over the speed of light squared. Mine is the Lorentz factor is the square root of, or delta t times the square root of 1 minus angular frequency squared.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
I was saying, at least you can prove what you're saying. Like, mine is just a philosophy at this moment, and I know it's true, but that doesn't mean, you know.
Right. But that's where a lot of these things come from. I felt this 20 years ago, but it took me 20 years to get to where I could describe it with equations at a level that is appropriate. But I can still get better, because I think I'm only at like a maybe 4th or 5th year level of traditional classical training, where people that have PhDs are better at crunching equations, but they don't have creativity. And it's like an artist can draw a picture, and a mathematician will graph something on a piece of graph paper. If I graph the equation negative x squared, it makes this shape like this. But an artist will just draw the shape. A mathematician will graph it, but they're the same thing. It's just artist is seeing it naturally. A mathematician is saying, I'm going to structure this geometry on a grid, but it's still just the same shape. It's just two different perspectives. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking, because I'm thinking to myself, because I've always, like, I've really wrestled with, like, should I ever go back to school and get trained? And you kind of really inspire me by, like, yes, there's some things I should learn if I ever do want to prove my higher dimensional plasma, like learning calculus and all that stuff. Because for anyone who doesn't know, I went to rehab when I was 16 and 20. I did not get to go to college. I was a crazy mess as a teenager and an adult, but I was also very intelligent. And I got sober when I was 21, and now I'm 35. And my thought process is, okay, for me, I know this plasma field. I know it's real. I see it in my head. Even if Jason is calling something a different name, like, I know it's there, and I know it's what holds our subconscious. I know it holds our superconscious. Like, I know it holds our consciousness. It's many dimensions. It's like the matrix. It's like the goo that this matrix is made out of, and it's how the singularity communicates with consciousness. It's how the universe grows, and like, I know this in the depths of my soul, no matter what it's called. I like the word plasma, because plasma means to mold in Greek, and I think that's the exact definition. It's molded, and it's a feedback loop with information or consciousness. My point being, this is very long-winded, I've always been insecure that I don't know calculus or certain things in physics, even though I can learn very quick. But my quantitative reasoning is in the, like, 98th percentile, so I know I'm good and I can learn it. And then I also came to the conclusion that I am, let's just say I don't choose to dedicate my life to that, proving it. I'm a philosopher. I'm a metaphysical person. That is me. If I can inspire other people to figure out these things, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with just spreading my ideas. And if I think in our future, and tell me if I'm wrong, in our future, it's not necessarily about proof. If everyone's in their own reality, it's what you resonate with. It's what feels true to you. So that will be obsolete. It's good that you have that right now, because we need it. But I'm saying in 5-10 years, what's going to matter is connecting with yourself and knowing what's true to you and knowing your own discernment and boundaries. And then people will find us and just feel our purity, and they'll connect with us. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we'll have a leg up on all those people. Right.
Well, and that's all that when we go to school, that's one thing that's good about school and bad about school. The good part is it's teaching us a language that we all speak the same language. So we're all communicating in the same place. But what it also does is it trains out creativity. And so people go in school, like when I first went to Math 101, I went back to school at 35, and now I'm 50, almost 55. And so when I went back, because I'm 35. Yeah, so exactly. So when I went back to school, I had a drawing of that. It was also in Scientific American. It's going to be made into a major motion picture, and you'll be seeing all these things So you can see it in Scientific American or People Magazine or any of those places, but it's also being made into a movie. But when I went, I'm sorry, what now?
Is it in Scientific American right now?
It was in Scientific American like a few years ago. I can't remember what episode, but it was in Scientific American. It was in People Magazine. It was in we did every major magazine and TV
famous.
show.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. School teaches language. That's all right. Oh yeah. So I when I started Math 101, I went back to school at 35, and I had this whole idea fleshed out in my head, but I was using layman terms, just like when you explain things, you're not in total layman terms, but it's just a different language, but it's still the same thing. So I went into my very first day of class, and I was so proud of this drawing, and I showed it to my math teacher, and I'm like, that's the number pi, and they looked at it and were like, I had no idea what I was talking about, and it kind of made me feel silly. But once I went through math classes for 1 year and I got to calculus 2, I was able to write the equations to 100% prove that what I drew is exactly what I said it was. But they just didn't recognize it because they had to see it as an integral and derivatives. But the drawing is integrals and derivatives. And they just don't, most of them don't see things geometrically. They've learned to memorize these formulas and put it in this organized fashion, but they don't see how it naturally works in the world. So there is this blend of the two worlds of being educated, but also being creative. And those are the Einsteins and the Teslas. They're the ones who can see the geometry and see the equations. Both.
I think I can do both. I think you can too. I think it's more like the rebel in me doesn't want to go back to school, but I don't think I do. I think for me, you can help me with calculus and I can train myself in books. But yes, I would love to build a bridge to science, and I am trying to do that in my new book, but I would love to know the math. But I'm always going to spend more of my time philosophizing, if that's the right word. But I would like to spend 40% of the time grounding it in reality. So that is what I'm working on with my book, and then what I want to train to do, which is what you've done to get back to you, which is so exciting. Yeah, do you want to do a 10-minute Q&A? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's the last thing, yeah. So yeah, what we were just saying, yeah, like you've kind of given me this, you've given me from talking to you this way to look at the connection that this emotionally makes with other people and how our feelings are these coherent signals. And I had never thought about that until talking to you. I was looking at it from this pure, so like when we were talking about this yin yang thing, it's like you are this yin of the, I feel it spiritually and how this connects with my coherent consciousness. I'm looking at it from science, but really we're the same thing. Together we make the whole picture.
Yin yang, the holographic DJs.
We are the holographic DJs. Yeah,
Dana and Jason. He's Jason. That's what Jason came up with. That guys. That Jason and Dana makes DJ, and our podcast is on YouTube. You could follow my YouTube. The link's in the bio. It's called Holographic Horizons. So we're like the DJs of this new.
Yes, and the singularity is broadcasting all possible frequencies, and we're your holographic DJs.
I think what's great about us is actually the yin yang, guys. It's where there's a little bit of feeling in Jason, or else he wouldn't be able to make the bridge to my little bit of science. And I understand him because I do have a comprehension and just a knack for understanding science and math. So if I didn't have that and I was just spiritual and he was just science, we would still never be having this talk. Because we would just be telling each other our own ideas.
Just like the calculus teachers who looked at me like, what is this? But then a year later, they were going, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is what you were saying. But a year before that, they were like, oh my goodness, what is this? So. Yeah.
And we didn't have to do that, thank God. But that is what you have to do. And it is true that if you do want to change the world, sometimes you need the patience to build those bridges. Yeah. So that's what, anyway, we're trying to build the bridges by us talking about it, you guys sharing it with as many people as you can, just getting this knowledge out there, because funny enough, you would think Jason would have a Nobel Prize right now for unifying these things, and a few other people too who have had groundbreaking discoveries in this field. And the reason it doesn't happen, I won't get too conspiratorial, but people are working on this in the government as well, and there's politics, and what I think with our community and the general public, which is huge, if we can get this out there and this knowledge is out there, that's all that really matters. Go ahead.
Yeah, somebody was saying goodbye. So when somebody says God is a DJ, this actually it kind of leads to some of those things. So the singularity is all the source of all information. And some people call it God. I call it information or the singularity, but it's really the same thing. Whether you call it God or whether you call it the singularity, the light is the same. My grandmother loves it because it says God said let there be light, and this showing that everything is just spinning bits of light which create a quantum computer. And my dad loves it because he's an atheist. It applies both of them. It's equally applicable, and people can decide to apply it however they want. Again, the singularity. I think of that as the source of all possible knowledge compressed into one point, and it is projected onto the event horizon, and that is the Big Bang, or that is let there be light, whatever you want to call it.
It's all connect. I love it. Does anyone want to ask any questions before we get off? So this will be on YouTube in a few days. You can follow my YouTube and the link in my bio, and it's called Holographic Horizons, the podcast. It's only on YouTube. Oh, this is changing lives. That's so sweet.
If you get a chance, make sure you download that paper, because the more people that download that and share it with each other, the faster this information will get out there, because everybody has a chat GPT now that they can download this paper into, and it'll explain it to you in whatever terms you want, in physics terms, in informatics terms, in normal terms, whatever you want.
Metaphysics. It even does metaphysics, yes. Guys.
Just tell it. Just download the PDF. It'll tell you that yes, all these equations are equivalent. Yes, they are empirically verified, and then tell it after that. Say, now explain it to me in whatever terms you want. Whether you're a physicist or an informatics professor, or you just want it in normal terms, just tell it what you want, and it'll do it.
And the paper is in a link in my bio, and it's also if you're watching on YouTube, it will be in my Stan store, or on TikTok, it's in my Stan store. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and it says Jason Padgett's AI training. Yeah. That's where it is.
Yeah, what it does is when you download that PDF into your AI, it trains your AI on all the basic equations of quantum information holography, so that then it has enough knowledge to understand it. I actually have it on Zenodo. I've got like 500 pages of this theory, or this hypothesis, but all it really needs is these 25 pages of the PDF that I've put in this file. Your AI will then understand quantum information holography enough to say, yes, it confirms that it's time dilation, the origin of gravity, and the origin of the Schrodinger equation, or probability amplitudes. But real quick, for all if anybody is watching this as a physicist, what this is showing is that these spinning bits of light are creating constructive and destructive interference. And the probability of constructive interference is, or the probability of the qubit being 0 is the cosine squared of theta divided by 2. And that's the orientation of the quantum state vector on a Bloch sphere. And the probability of the qubit becoming a 1 or having decoherence is the sine squared of theta divided by 2, where the theta is the orientation of the quantum state vector on the Bloch sphere. Sorry, I just wanted to say that for anybody watching this. That's what unifies it. Einstein's vector tensor field shows you the gravity, and I'm saying, yes, those arrows tell you the gravity, but they also give you the probability amplitudes of constructive and deconstructive interference. And that's what bridges quantum mechanics and relativity, is combining probability with curvature and showing that they're the same thing. The holographic projection of reality, the geometry of it is the code. The geometry defines the probability of each point collapsing into a 0 or a 1, which is why I call it the holographic matrix. Yeah.
That's what literally I call plasma conscious synergy, which creates space-time geometry. Gravity is an effect of this. What I call plasma consciousness synergy, which can happen in all different ways, is what Jason is calling this. And metaphorically, for all you metaphysics people, between Jason's theory and Einstein basically you said he only talked about gravity. So Einstein only talked about gravity, or what I think would have to do with like this plasma stuff. But
what he's describing is the curvature of space-time, which is gravity.
But he didn't take into account this like conscious observer, or what Jason's calling information. But basically, Jason kind of rounds out this theory with depth and shows that there's some kind of feedback loop within this theory rather than just this one gravity.
It shows we all reduce into one thing, and that is light and the information contained within it. And a lot of times people say, well, how is information contained within light? Well, when you have a little block sphere, it's like an XY axis, and you have a little bit of light. Just imagine light at an angle. So it's a beam of light, but the information that it contains is its slope, its rise over its run. And a different angle is a different rise over a different run. And that's what mathematics is just all these different rates of change. And so the angle of the light on the qubit, it is literally describing derivatives with light, which is the rate that something changes. That's the definition of a derivative. And the angular frequency that these light clocks are making, that bounds what's called an integral. The angular frequency gives you a specific area that is bounded by that angular frequency. So the universe being all these different light clocks spinning at different speeds is defining different derivatives and different integrals, and it's doing it with the speed of light on a block sphere, just like a quantum computer.
I was just going to say, okay, so I want to get to the questions just because I have to hop off in 10 minutes. Someone said, ask him what's temporal order judgment reversal.
So what this shows is that the singularity, think of it again like a mirror, that it's reflecting onto the event horizon all possible histories. So when you look in it, it's like seeing an infinity mirror with all these different reflections of every possible thing. But all those pictures are actually just still. The singularity is just this still picture, like all the movies. Like when you have a movie, if you cut it apart into its little picture frames, the singularity is like all of those still picture frames right on top of each other. So you can't see what anything's doing because it's all blurred together in superposition. When it's projected out onto this holographic screen, it spreads it out. I'm sorry, what was the question? Make sure I describe it better again.
I honestly don't remember because I'm reading people's comments. Well, I think you explained.
No, there's more. Temporal.
Temporal.
Okay, so we have all of these still picture frames that are in the singularity, and it's being reflected. All these still images are being reflected on the event horizon. There's something called 0-point energy, and it comes from uncertainty, and it makes space vibrate. So now you have these reflections, but they vibrate due to uncertainty, and that is what makes it become picture frames or a movie. So the movie or time is this illusion that is created from the vibration of these still holographic images. It's like literally it's like looking in a lake. Imagine you have a movie that's or TV screen that's playing, and you can see its reflection in the lake. But then you make the lake vibrate. You see the reflection of the movie, but you see it vibrating off the surface of the lake. That's what this is. It's how the uncertainty principle makes these quantum states vibrate, which then projects all of these images, and that vibration gives the appearance of time. But time technically is an illusion. All of these are just still frames, and we're experiencing them one at a time. That gives us this experience of time, but it's not actually real. It's real, but it's not fundamental. All states are always there, never changing, nothing ever created, nothing ever destroyed, only eternally transforming back from light to mass and mass back into light.
I'm going to get to another one. Has he ever had any conscious manifestations working out for him? So maybe I'm assuming, I think they asked it twice, so hold on.
Like how to manifest the reality you want to experience.
Yeah, like maybe have you ever tried to consciously think you wanted something and it happened or something? Like how do you harness this knowledge to manifest?
That's what I think about. So I try to think of, I want to make a coherent reflection of the reality that I want to experience. And I want to decohere or eliminate or turn to zero the realities that I don't want to experience. And that starts in our brain. Thoughts affect reality. Because when we think, I think to move my hand, and my hand moved. So my thought affected reality. And so our decisions collapse this wave function to where certain things happen and certain things don't happen. And when you, if you want to be happy, if that's your goal, and you're talking to 99% people who are just mean and yelling at you all the time, then all of the reflections of information are all negative, and you're more than likely going to be reflecting back what is coming in. You're having all these negative experiences. Yeah, so if I have 100 experiences with you and 99 of them are good, then that creates this this thing that I want to experience, where if you're somebody else's, every time they call you, they're like, oh, like anybody have somebody that's getting a divorce call you and all they do is bitch about their ex, and you're like nodding, but really all they're doing is projecting their misery onto you and making you experience their misery. So now when you think about that person, you have all these negative memories, where when we're talking to each other about good things, it's the exact reverse, where now I'm like, like certain people that would call and just complain all the time. As soon as the phone rings, you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to answer this. And that's because of the number of interactions that you have are negative with them versus positive. And so the way that, depending on what your goal is, if your goal is happiness and love, then
what if someone wants $100 to manifest? What would you explain is the best way by using your method to make that probabilistically happen?
So yeah, that would have to do with that's just like making connections. Like if you talk to somebody who's building computers and you talk to somebody who understands informatics, the more I make connections with all these people that increase the probability of me achieving my goal, makes that future more likely to actually happen. So.
Oh, sorry, my stupid phone. The way I would explain it, kind of what you're saying, is if I wanted, there has to be some action because it's a synergy, right? It's a feedback loop. So, for instance, and this is in many schools of thought, but if I want to manifest $100 by next week, I would put myself in a position where that might come to me. I'll act like it's coming. I'll even talk to people who maybe are hiring or wealthy, or like seek donations. Like there's all these actions you can take. And then there also is and I've had it happen where there is a pure thought and it's almost like because you're not attached to it. And I would love to hear why non-attachment makes it happen. Maybe it has to do with decoherence, but I've thought something very lightly where I'm not trying to manifest. I just think, oh, I'd like an audition for that movie, while I was acting. And then the audition comes and I forgot I even thought that.
Right.
What is that?
And if you so if you never thought about doing an audition ever, like today I auditioned for Jesus Christ Superstar. I'll tell you about that later. But if you never think about it, then it's never going to happen. If I think about, okay, I want to understand black holes. Now I want to study black holes. Now I want to figure out the equation for black holes. All these different connections are increasing the probability of that happening. And if I just don't even think about black holes, then what's the probability of me finding an equation to describe it? It's near zero. So the more the connections that you make, the more you are increasing the probability of those events occurring. And that's the coherent thing. I have more coherent interactions understanding black holes than I do, mowing the lawn or something.
What about, then there's this weird third thing, which I've experienced, which is where I've only thought about something once and it magically happens and I'm not paying attention. It's like I had the thought in passing and then it comes to me. It was almost like a very pure thought. Would that almost, I think it has to do with this dark energy, or what I would call fifth dimension, or what you would call high angular frequency. Can you make a connection there of what that might be when you just think, oh, I'd like that, and then it comes, but you don't do anything to make it happen. You've only thought about it once.
Yeah, well, the thought affects reality. Like I said, the thought's making my hand move. So when you think a brain wave is leaving, your brain is creating this brain wave, and we can measure brain waves. So they're leaving your head. When you think, brain waves are literally leaving your head. But if right now I'm thinking this pen, and that brain wave left, and it's hitting that wall. It's technically affecting the wall, but it's such a small way that you couldn't tell how it's moving anything here or there. But technically that brain wave is a signal, and it's affecting things on the very, very incredibly tiny level, the quantum level.
Wait, you just made me make a connection. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the more of those connections you make, the more it amplifies that, and the more it actually affects reality.
But I just had a connection with what you're saying, and this is crazy because it's not what you said, but it is what you said with the pen. It's that's a pen, and you only said it once, but because it's a pen, you're detached. Because it's a pen, so you thought it once, and it's almost like this can bounce around the universe, and it's a pen, and that's kind of what I'm saying. It's these pure thoughts you'll have sometimes that you're not attached to will happen because it's almost like you're so lightly wanting it. It's like a subtle energy thing. Does that make any sense? It's almost that's a pen.
This pen is information. So think of it like the Matrix. This is the spoon. There is no spoon. There is only information. And that information, it depends on who's looking at it. And that's Einstein's relativity. When in the movie The Matrix, when he's like, You see the spoon? He's like, what you need to understand is that there is no spoon. Because he was like, make the spoon bend. But the whole point is that the spoon is just information. And there is no spoon because it's just information. That information is relative to like who's actually looking at it. The other thing I noticed somebody say in the comments was that it's there's no good without darkness, or there's no good without bad, no light without darkness. And that's exactly what this is. The singularity is absolute darkness. The projection on the event horizon is the light. And it's just two different perspectives. If you're going into a black hole, from your perspective, you go into the black hole, and now you're in the black hole and you're gone. And that in the energy of your universe, or the information of you, is lost to the universe. But as you approach the black hole, to somebody outside, like you watching me go in the black hole, as I approach the black hole, it has gravity, extreme curvature. So I start to speed up as I approach the black hole. The faster you go, the slower time goes to somebody else. So as I'm approaching the black hole, to me, everything seems normal. But to you watching me go in the black hole, time dilation makes me slow down until I freeze and I become information smeared across the event horizon. From my perspective, I go in the black hole and I'm destroyed. From your perspective, or from anybody outside the black hole, that image is, or that information is preserved on the event horizon. So what is destroyed, and an exact copy of it is made on the event horizon, which conserves information and energy. So it's how black holes are just two different perspectives. From the thing going in the black hole, it goes in the black hole, it's gone from this universe, and it's in another universe, which is just black holes within black holes. But to an observer outside the black hole, you slow down and become smeared on the event horizon. And that was shown by Leonard Susskind. He's the chair of Stanford Physics. And what he is describing is the exact same thing. Quantumly entangled black holes connected by a wormhole with these quantum state vectors that are on these little qubits. And those vectors encode velocity components. What I'm showing is they also encode probability of the qubits collapsing to 0 and 1. And the rate that they spin, that's curvature or gravity. And what's really important about this is it shows that gravity emerges from the information field. Yes. So this is an information field. If you just take, it's called a quantum state vector tensor field, where all these little arrows are on spheres. And if you take one little picture, like a movie, you just take one snapshot, all it tells you is velocity and probability. But when you take a second picture and compare it, that gives you a rate of change of velocity, which is acceleration, and acceleration, Einstein proved, is equivalent to gravity. So you need two picture frames to have gravity, but you only need one to have information. So gravity emerges from the rate of change of the information field. Gravity is not a fundamental behavior.
It's emergent.
It's emergent behavior from the rate of change of the.
I call it plasma conscious synergy. That's what gravity is. What emerges from it is almost like the universe's consciousness and plasma working together to create gravity. But that's for another time.
Yes, and this is what Penrose and Stuart Hamerhoff are saying. Penrose, again, he won the Nobel Prize. I spoke at their conference twice. He won the Nobel Prize in physics for black holes. And the equation that they're using to describe for microtubules is the reduced Planck constant times angular frequency. And that is the exact same equation that I'm using for this. It is the angular frequency of this Hawking radiation that is emitted from the black holes that allows you to understand what's going on inside the black hole. By watching the movie in a mirror, the event horizon is a mirror where you're watching a movie of what's happening inside the black hole, but without looking in the black hole. So that Hawking radiation that leaves, it allows you to reconstruct the mass, the charge, and the spin of what's happening in the black hole by looking at Hawking radiation that's leaving the edge of the black hole, not within it. Because nothing can escape physically from the black hole, but through quantum entanglement, the information escapes and we can reconstruct it and preserve it. So.
I'm so sorry. I have to get off.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll say one more thing. I don't want to just cut this off because, guys, you have been so amazing. The fact that we've sustained at least 60 people this whole time, I know it's gotten way higher, but the fact that we sustained that is a record for us. I don't know if it's 60 or 600, but either way, it's great. We've had 19,000 people total come in and out, which is huge. This is going to be on YouTube on our Holographic Horizons podcast. Yes, Tin. You can go to the link in my bio and subscribe to the YouTube. We'll have Jason's links on there. Jason's on TikTok. You can follow him. I haven't.
Make sure to check out like I said, download the PDF into your AI and check out the movie. The movie is going to be out. My life was optioned to be made into a movie. So hopefully in the next 24 months, the movie will be out. And then during in the movie, we're going to fly into the black holes. Or if you go to my Facebook or TikTok page, I've already created videos that
you better cast me in that movie. They better give me a one.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Tell them I want one line. I understand they have to cast really famous people, but if they give me one line, I'll be happy.
Yeah, well, it was first optioned by Channing Tatum, this actor named Channing Tatum, and I told him that I wanted to have a cameo where I say something the exact opposite, like I'm like, math is stupid, or something that's exactly opposite of what I would do.
Oh, that's so, yeah, I love him because of course, Magic Mike. Okay, so yes, this will be on YouTube. Let's leave. This is kind of like what Lewis Howes does when he asks like 3 questions, but let me leave with one question. What is the biggest insight philosophically? And like, what's important, what matters to you? What's the biggest insight you've gained from all your work so far?
That we're all connected and we all have more in common than we don't. We are all literally the light of the singularity being projected on the events horizon. Everything is the singularity and all this information being projected. So basically it's like the universe pretending to be individuals. We're all the same thing. We're all connected. And we have much more in common than we don't. We're all light and the information contained within it.
That's beautiful. And you know what's so funny about that? The biggest thing I've learned is the opposite but the same, which is so yin yang of us. But like what my biggest takeaway has been with my whole plasma work and consciousness is that we are the same thing at a level. And then at another level, our individuality, and tell me what you think, our individuality is so important because if you're not the youest you and the most authentic you, the most conscious, aware you, the universe can't fully learn about itself, which is why it made you. So
we are the universe experiencing itself, literally, in every possible state, every possible history.
And that's what I'm saying. And if you're trying to be someone else, they were meant to be them, to experience life how they were, with their own quirks, with their own interests. You have to be the youest you. And that is God's will, or that's the universe's will. You being your authentic self, no matter how freaking weird you are, no matter what you like, no matter what strange ideas you have, that is contributing to this greater whole and the universe learning about itself. But if you're not being your authentic self, the universe loses out because you're just trying to be like someone else. So it's very—
and they're all necessary. Nothing can exist without all possibilities actually existing. So no matter what it is, no matter how evil it is, no matter how good it is, it all must exist to allow anything to exist. It creates this perfect balance, the yin and yang, the singularity, the event horizon, where energy and information are perfectly conserved. Nothing created, nothing destroyed, forever transforming back and forth. So every good thing is necessary, every bad thing is necessary, and they all happen at all different rates.
Not all fair, but
they're not all fair, exactly. The universe isn't fair. The universe isn't fair, it's balanced.
It's not fair. It's how you react to it that matters, guys.
Yeah. It's what reality do you choose to give coherence to? You know.
I love it. Okay, guys. Well, in that case, we all are the creators of our destiny in the fact that we're creators in what we perceive and how we react. All right, Jason, thank you so much. We do this every 2 weeks, guys. We will be back. I don't know the exact date, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Usually we do it on Tuesday, so I'll let you guys know. We have to figure it out. You can, once again, go to my YouTube and search our podcast, Holographic Horizons. The page is in the link in my bio. Most importantly, out of anything, if you guys are doubting this, or if you want to expand on Jason's theories, or send them to your friends, let everyone know, make TikToks about his theories. The PDF is in my Stand store. It's the link in my bio. You literally put it in ChatGPT, copy, paste, enter. It'll tell you all about his theories, how they are accurate with the microtubules, with the OR theory, with Kepler, with Schrodinger's, and it'll also, then you can start asking more questions how to make it your own.
Yes. And it'll teach you. It'll tell you in any way that you want, whether you're a physicist professor, an informatics professor, or just you just want to know about it in regular terms. You just tell Chat to explain it to you in the terms that you want, whether you want equations or you want words, it'll do it.
Yep, spiritually, metaphysically, scientifically, mathematically, artistically, freaking historically, whatever you want. Oh, my dog's ready for me to go. All right, guys.
He's projecting his information onto you right now.
Oh, I know. Stop it. Okay, guys, we'll see you in a few weeks, and
Okay.
I'll get this on YouTube soon. Thank you, Jason.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. How do I turn this off? I always